Captain Peter Cutsey, Part 6. Adverse weather, cold operations. We're in the hold at Belgrade in the published hold. You can see us here, tracking inbound 030. We had made an approach, and now we are doing a second approach. So we are going to transition from Belgrade to Ripan for the approach, and we've now been cleared for the approach. So we will exit hold, confirm with my partner, and execute. And we are at 3,100 feet. We requested that because that's the altitude we should be at for the approach. This entire approach will be done under ISA conditions, 14.5 Celsius at the field, and the altimeter setting happens to be 1013. Remember, TUPCO 3100, radio altimeter 2057, DME 8.4, 2312. So that's what we'll be looking for and focusing our attention on the radio altimeter compared to the barometric altimeter using the VSD references here, as we mentioned before. We're currently at 3,100 feet. And remember, the green line here is the height of the terrain above sea level beneath the aircraft. Right now, that's the height of the terrain beneath the aircraft. All right, we briefed on that extensively. So that's what we want to be focusing our attention on during this approach. We're in VNAV path, RMP, AMP checks. We've completed the descent and approach procedures, and we've completed the descent and approach checklist. We are tuned to the Bravo Golf Delta VOR on both sides. Change the scale. The weather's good, and I want to be able to show you the slight offset. Remember, we're flying a VOR radio. We're not going to be particularly lined up with the runway, and that's important to have been part of the briefing when you've did your actual briefing. All right. So we'll configure flaps 1. We will set flaps 1 speed. Radio altimeter is alive, and I want us to be watching it as we go through this entire maneuver. Flaps 5. Flaps 5 speed set. The descent approach checklist complete. VNAV path, RMP, AMP checks out. top of descent is here. We can see it. So 2 nautical miles prior to the top of descent, we will begin those 8 items that we talked about in previous videos for non-precision approaches. That is the MDA set, RMP, AMP, and of course, the VNAV path. Gear down, flaps 15, speed brakes armed, open the speed window and set flaps 15 speed. Those are the 8 items. We're being reminded to set the altitude. We will do that at 2 nautical miles prior. And we're working under ISA conditions, totally ISA conditions. We'll go ahead and set the minimum now, and it'll be rounded up to 800. Remember 720, add 50 feet, so rounded up to 800. So the MDA has been set, RMP, AMP checks within limits, and we're in VNAV path. Radio altimeter is alive. Gear down. About 15. And set flaps 15 speed. And flaps 30. Set VREF 30 plus 5. There's our vertical profile on the NPS scale, and our lateral profile. Radio altimeter is alive. And our descent has begun. When we're 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, we can set the missed approach altitude, which is 3,000 feet. $28.40 by the final fix. Missed approach altitude set. Landing checklist complete. We have a strong crosswind. We can actually have a look. There's the raw data for the VOR. All right, so that checks out. And their VOR course is 298. Remember, we're not lined up with the runway. The VOR is actually to the north side of the runway, and we're flying a radial, the 118 radial. So we're right on vertical path, and we're right on lateral path. Let's pause the sim and go and put the weather in Cav OK. So we can have a look at the runway as we come up to it. We'll actually go into a night scene so we can better appreciate the approach and see everything a little clearer. So we're not, it appears that we're lined up with the runway, but we're not really lined up with the runway. But there is what we would be viewing. We're on vertical path, and we're on lateral path on the nav performance scales. And on our VS, I should say on our nav display, we have the vertical path when we're within limits and we're right on path. And there's the runway, as I was mentioning to you before. It's right on the surface, on the green line. Therefore, it means that our altimeter setting is correct. All right, now we're coming up to a point of approaching minimums. Let's just freeze the simulator here and go to a day scene again. And then we'll have a look outside. There is the runway, you can see it, and we're not quite lined up. We're on that radial, that's the reason why. So let's continue this approach. Now, of course, there's approaching minimum, a runway in sight, continue, and we would disconnect the auto flight systems, of course, and land. So you can see the runway extended center line is just to our left. All right, so everything is the way we briefed it for ISA conditions. This will be the end of video, or I should say part 6. Thank you for watching.